Hello, sixth graders. So today's lesson is over how to convert fractions, decimals, and percents. Make sure you have a sheet of paper and a pencil and that you're ready to go. Our objective today is that students will be able to convert decimals, fractions, and percents, listen for new vocabulary during classroom instruction, answer questions, and explain your reasoning to your classmates. Okay, let's talk about how to change a fraction into a decimal. We learned how to do this previously, so I'm just going to review it very quickly. Remember, you can always go back on the video and rewatch what I showed you if you forget later on when you're doing your assignment. So to change the fraction into a decimal, we just divide. The numerator goes inside the house, the denominator goes outside the house. So this is 1 divided by 2. And since 2 can't go into 1, we add a decimal point and a 0. And then 2 goes into 10 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 minus 10 is 0. Remember that our decimal goes straight up, and so our answer would be 0.5 or 0 and 5 tenths. So 1/2 as a decimal is 0 and 5 tenths. Sometimes we have fractions whenever we convert them to decimals that keep going and going and going. And if you remember, we call those repeating decimals. So whenever that happens, we are just going to, if you see that the number keeps on going and going and going, you're just going to stop. And whatever number is repeating, we have a 3 here that's repeating. We're going to put a bar on top to show that's repeating. So 1/3 as a fraction, 1/3 the fraction as a decimal would be written as 0.3 with a bar on top to say 0.3 repeating. Okay, so now let's talk about how we change a fraction into a percent. So to change a fraction into a percent, what we're going to do is we're going to divide first, and then we're going to do something else. So whenever we divide, as we just showed in the last slide, 1/2, and we divide it and we get 0.5, it's just a decimal. Do we all agree on that? Okay, so if we have a decimal here, what we're going to do is we're going to move the decimal 2 places to the right and then add a percent sign. So we're going to go like this. We're going to say 0.5, move it over 1, 2. Since I have an extra spot here, I'm going to add a 0 right there. And it's going to be 50. And the decimal is after the 50, if you notice that. So 0.5 of the decimal would be 50%. Because all we do is add a percent sign at the end. Go ahead and try changing 2/5 from a fraction into a percent. Pause the video while you're working and then see if you got the right answer. Okay, so here I did my work and I saw that 5 cannot go into 2, so I added a decimal point and a 0. My decimal went straight up. 5 can go into 20 4 times, and so I got 4 times 5 is 20, and so 2/5 as a decimal would equal 0.4. Then I went ahead, I changed my color to blue, and I said that I'm going to move the decimal 2 places to the right, so I went to the right 2 times, 1, 2, and I got 40 as my percent, and I just added a percent sign. Hopefully you all were able to get the same answer. Okay, let's talk about how we change a decimal into a fraction. So if you remember, we just look at the last number, whatever place the last number is in. So in here on 0.4, the 4 is in the tenths place, so a 10 goes on the bottom, and whatever we have over here just goes on top. In 0.37, 7 is in the hundreds place, so we put 100 on the bottom, and 37 goes on top. Here we have a 9 in the thousands place, so 1,000 goes on the bottom, and 279 goes on top as a numerator. It's that simple. All right, to change a decimal into a percent, we actually just saw how we did that a second ago in a previous slide. So just to recap, we just move the decimal 2 places to the right. So 0.4, we move the decimal over 2 times, it becomes 40, and we add the percent sign, so it'll be 40%. In 0.35, decimal's right here, move it over 1, 2, and it becomes 35 or 35%. In 0.276, remember the decimal goes 2 ways to the right, right? So we go over 1, 2 times, and we have 27.6. That's okay. We just add a percent sign to that, and it becomes 27.6%. So remember, when we have a decimal to a percent, move it over 2 places to the right. Go ahead and try these ones to the right and see if you get the right answer. Pause the video while you're working. Okay, I went ahead and worked out these 3 over here on the right side. Let me explain what I did. I moved the decimal 2 places to the right, so 1, 2, and I got 4% here. I moved the decimal place over 2 places to the right, and I got 1, 2, 90. 90% because I had to add a 0 because I can't just have an empty space there. And then the last one, I moved the decimal place over 2 places to the right, and I got 79.5 or 79.5%. Okay, so like what happens when we start with a percent and we want to go to a decimal or a fraction? This is all we do. We just do the opposite of what we just did. Instead of moving it to the right, because when you're trying to make a percent, we move to the left since we're trying to make a decimal. So here I have 55%. I move my decimal place 2 places to the left and then add a percent sign. So it becomes 0.55. Let me explain it again. So like in 200, can you see the decimal? No, it's invisible. So it's going to be at the end. I move it over to the left 2 times, 1, 2, and it becomes the number 2. And it's just the number 2. So 200% would be the number 2. Move it 2 places to the left and you drop that percent sign. What about 0.56%? Once again, move it over to the left 1, 2 times. Since I have an empty space there, I need to add a 0. Oh, my iPad won't let me add a 0. Okay, fine. But I need to add a 0. So it'd be 0, 0, 5, 6. My decimal is before the 0 right here. And so I would drop the percent sign. And now it's 0.0056. Go ahead and try these 3 to the right. Remember, move the decimal over 2 places to the left and then drop that percent sign. Okay, here are my answers. Let me explain how I got them. Hopefully you got the same answers as well. So the decimal here is after the 5. I move it over 1, 2 times, and I get 3.45, and I just drop my percent sign. Here the decimal is after the 7. I move it over 1, 2 spots. So I have 0.87, and I drop my percent sign again. Here I move the decimal over twice, and I have 0.004, and I drop my percent sign. And that would be my final answer there. Okay, and last but not least, let's talk about how to change a percent into a fraction. So what we're gonna do is we first have to change that percent into a decimal. And we just learned in the last slide that all you do is move the decimal over 2 places to the left. So 55% would turn into 0.55. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the place values. Remember this? Yeah, okay. So let's see what place value the last number is. So that 5. 5 is in the hundreds place, so 100 goes on the bottom, and 55 goes on top. So 55% as a fraction would be 55 over 100. Let's do it again. Okay, so we have 125. The decimal is right here after the 5. We're gonna first move it over 2 places, so 1, 2, and we get 1.25. Then we're gonna say what place is our last number in. And 5 is in the hundreds place. So 100 is gonna go on the bottom. Then everything that was on top that was in the number goes on top. And we drop our decimal. So we have 125 over 100. That would be 125% as a fraction. So go ahead and try out 345%, 87%, and 0.4% to see if you can change them into fractions. Okay, let me explain how I got these answers. So I had 345%. The decimal is right here. I'm gonna move it over 1, 2 places. And that gets you to 3.45. That 5 is in the hundredths place. So I'm gonna put 100 on the bottom. And 345 goes on top. For 87%, I had the decimal right here. And I moved it over 1, 2 spots. And that would get you 0.87. 7 is in the hundreds place. So I'm gonna put 100 on the bottom and 87 goes on top. Here, my decimal is right here, so I'm gonna move it over 1, 2 places. And I have a 0 here. And I'm going to see the number would be 0.004. 4 is it's not in the hundreds place. Woohoo, I made a mistake. All right, 4 is actually in the what place, guys? It's in the thousands place. So 1,000 is actually gonna go on the bottom. Hopefully you guys caught that mistake. 4 is gonna be in the thousands place, so I'm gonna put 1,000 on the bottom, and then 4 goes on top. As you're working on the assignment in Duck Soup, If you've noticed, every time I wrote a decimal, I always put a 0 point something in the beginning. Please make sure that you do that on your answers as well. And if you need to rewatch this video, please do.